Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Доброе утро. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Kopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Punjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Cherada Madhava Kunja Bihari Dev Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupada Paramahamsa Brihadrakacharya Stotra Sati Srimad Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupada Paramahamsa Brihadrakacharya Stotra Sati Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitya Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Devamrita Swami Tamil Purva Bhakti Charmanta Paratapikana Namasam Maha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tamil Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pujayini Nirvishesa Shinivari Paschatya Shatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 29. Narada Muni is continuing to explain purport to his, I think he's finished explaining his allegorical story. And now he's just giving some important instructions. Now we're on text number 41, 4, 29, 41. Tack. Tack. Etair upadruto nityam jivaloka svabhavajai nakaroti hare nunam katamrita nidauratim. Etair upadruto nityam jivaloka svabhavajai nakaroti hare nunam katamrita nidauratim. Etair upadruto nityam jivaloka svabhavajai nakaroti hare nunam Katamrita nidauratim. Word for word translation. Etai, by these, upadruta, disturbed, nityam, always, jivalokaha, the conditioned soul in the material world. Svabhavajai, natural, na karoti, does not do. Hare, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nunam, certainly. Kata, of the words. Amrita, of nectar. Nidau, in the ocean. Ratim, attachment. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities, such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's hear that again. Because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities, such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone feel that they have little time? This is a relevant purport. Unless one is associated with devotees, he cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. Well, there you go. Nirjana bhajan, cultivating Krishna consciousness in a solitary place, is not possible for the neophyte, for he will be disturbed by the bodily necessities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Being so disturbed, one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. We therefore see that devotees known as sahajiya, who make everything very easy, do not associate with advanced devotees. Such persons, in the name of devotional activities, are addicted to all kinds of sinful acts: illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. There are many so-called devotees passing themselves off as devotees while engaging in these sinful activities. In other words, one who is influenced by a sinful activity cannot be accepted as a person in Krishna consciousness. A person addicted to sinful life cannot develop Krishna consciousness, as indicated in this verse. Wow. An interesting purport from Srila Prabhupada, because it is quite a heavy take on the verse. I mean, in the verse, Narada Muni is just saying, you know, if you're disturbed by bodily necessities such as hunger and thirst, such a person has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From the purport, Prabhupada's saying, if you're addicted to sinful activities, you cannot be Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada's taking this verse to a strong conclusion, as he does for our benefit. And let's see if we can unpack some more nectar. First, let me offer some respect to spiritual master and to the great devotees and to the Lord. Om Gyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaham Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Bhakta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitamam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar and all of the devotees. So again, Narada Muni says, because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities, such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, time. We don't have a lot of time if we are always disturbed by the bodily necessities, such as hunger and thirst. First thing that comes to mind as I read this verse and purport is Grihastas. And looking at the audience in our Bhagavatam class today, I would say that this is only slightly relevant to a few people. Devahuti and the cows aren't so worried. And great devotees like Tarika Prabhu are renounced from these sort of problems. But for many of us, this is a serious concern. Those who are Grihasta and who are considering Grihasta life have to be aware of this imminent danger. At all times, there's the imminent danger to waste time for bodily necessities such as hunger and thirst, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And let's be real practical here. Real practical analysis is that these things take a lot of time. And while the Grihasta spends so much time just trying to sort out the eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, you know, the brahmacharini in the ashram can just be reading Srimad Bhagavatam. But when you're in a relationship, in a family, even a Krishna conscious family, just this stuff takes such a huge amount of time. Gotta like talk about, you know, well, where are we gonna live? And then how much money are we gonna need? And what sort of enjoyment do you require? And what about the kids? How many kids are gonna be there? And how are we gonna raise the children? Are they gonna be raised, you know, like Prahlad? Are they gonna be raised, you know, in some more liberal way? And where are they gonna go to school? And what sort of grades we're gonna expect from them? And what sort of work are they going to do? And how many hours is it going to take? And is there going to be enough income? And how much are we going to save? This, like all this stuff takes a lot of time because you have to talk about it. And two people come together and, you know, they have different expectations and different desires. Of course, in the first stages of relationship, we just think everything's just nectarian and magical and the gods have fashioned you just for me. But then later, you know, you realize you have a lot of different perspectives on things and different expectations. And to make arrangements for the bodily necessities takes so much time. And meanwhile, those in more renounced statuses of life are just chanting and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hopefully. Of course, if you're in a renounced position in life, and you're not using that time to chant and read Srimad Bhagavatam, then that is called a pretender. What does Krishna say in chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita? Text number 6. But one who restrains the senses of action but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So, if you're in the honest Grihastha ashram, you have to recognize that all this stuff takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to sort out the bodily necessities. And if one is renounced, but not using their surplus of time for hearing and chanting, then they are a pretender. So the point is, katamritam nidau ratim. We must become attached to the ocean of nectar, the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must become attached. And again, for grihastas, it can be challenging because everything takes so much time. Boja moi, Dios mío, like just to get the whole circus of your family into the car and drive to the temple. Just the amount of time and energy that takes is wild. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Let's just be honest here. For those of you who tuned in a little late, just giving some constructive criticism about the eminent challenge of the Grihastha ashram is that it can be a lot of time just to do anything. And as Narada Muni is saying here, persons who are concerned with bodily necessities, they have very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time. The time it takes for persons attached to material energy to accomplish anything is gargantuan and shocking. My brother-in-law said, going anywhere with your family is like herding cats. Trying to use a herding analogy since there's a couple of cow herds in the room. But when you herd cows, you know, they walk in a single file line and they want to go and eat that food, and pretty peaceful most of the time. Sometimes they get a little spooked, but generally you get the cows moving in the right direction. And it all just kind of happens naturally. I used to take the cows to the back pastures. And, you know, they knew the routine. It's so easy that actually I would climb on the back of one girl, Kaylin. She was a big cow. She was very strong. And I'm not such a big person. So she would let me climb on her back and I'd ride her all the way to the field. She would just chill. Herding cows is very easy. But when you have family, grihastas, if you have extended family, grandparents, and also children, cousins and uncles and whatever, just like trying to get everybody to go somewhere and do something is like herding cats. Cats are not an animal that subjects itself to being herded, directed in any way. They all just scatter and run off in so many directions. So I can't tell you how many times I've tried to get the whole circus of my family into the vehicle and just move from point A to point B in the sort of like energy that takes, mind-boggling. It's phenomenal. Sometimes I want to just go back to the old days and get a whip. Whoosh, get in the car. But I'm not here to just gripe about the challenges of grihastha life, but I'm trying to point out the serious and imminent danger for those who have more material necessities is that all this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to talk about what you need and who needs to be where and how much is required, and then getting what's required, and then debating about, you know, how much, whatever, what it needs to be spent on. Do you have enough? Don't have enough? All this takes a lot of time. And then where's the time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That's Narada Muni's point here. To the degree that you're in the bodily concept of life, to that degree, you don't have time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Grihastha ashram is especially challenging because it is, as Prabhupada said, a license for sense enjoyment. It's allowed, you're allowed to enjoy your senses. But you got to pay the price. That price is, it takes a lot of time. I'm going to say another thing that's scary and challenging for grihastas, just because I know there's a few people here listening in who are in the initial stages of contemplation of grihasta life. So but then we'll say something positive, of course, because I am very happy in the grihasta ashram. Speaking for myself, I think it has been very beneficial to my Krishna consciousness. But before we get into the positive aspect, let's consider the challenges. So challenge number 1, takes a lot of time to do anything. Wow. Especially when you have little toddlers. Challenge number 2 for the grihastas is also being mentioned or kind of implied by Srila Prabhupada in this purport, is that the grihastas tend to become isolated. And that's very dangerous for your spiritual life. Very dangerous. Prabhupada says, unless one is associated with devotees, he cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. Nirjana bhajan, cultivating Krishna consciousness in a solitary place, is not possible for the neophyte. He will be disturbed by the bodily necessities. So another one of the tendencies of the grihastas, the challenges for that ashram, is the tendency to become isolated, because we use our grihasta status to justify attachment to sense gratification, a laziness in spiritual life, and nobody knows when you're hiding in your little castle. Nobody knows what is the seriousness of your sadhana in comparison with the potency or your attachment to sense gratification. Nobody knows. And oftentimes, too frequently, it is seen that devotees who are in a personalized status of life, we'll call that the grihasta ashram, where your life conditions are personalized. In the ashram, of course, you just have to go with the flow. Whatever's the status there, that becomes your status. But in the grihasta ashram, you personalize your life. Custom made. So those who are in the personalized status of life can be struggling in many ways, struggling with sadhana, struggling in Krishna consciousness, cultivating doubts, maybe an offensive mentality towards others. And as is very often seen, those persons tend to stop associating with devotees. And they sit in their little den of frustration, telling themselves, nobody does it right. One time, Gurudev, His Holiness Devamrita Swami joked that this is the joy of the grihasta ashram. You sit around the dinner table eating prasadam, talking about how everybody else does it wrong. So I'm trying to make light of a very serious challenge for grihastas and the many aspiring grihastas who are tuning in right now. That, they can become isolated, thinking nobody does it right. I'm the only one who really practices bhakti the right way. And so, or, they're struggling and thinking, I don't want anybody to see what I'm going through. And so they stop associating with devotees, stop associating, hide in the little cave. And the only person they associate with is their mind, maybe the mind of their spouse. Your spouse's mind isn't always pure and perfect in Krishna consciousness. When you have spousal relationships, sometimes one person is up and the other person's down, and then that person's up and the other one's down. And certainly there is sangha with your husband or wife, but that's not enough. Wow. Isolation is a very serious and imminent danger for the grihasta, as Prabhupada's pointing out here in this purport. Unless one is associated with devotees, you cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. So another serious challenge for the grihasta clan is that you have to make time to associate with devotees. And there's a lot of excuses not to. And, nobody's going to get on your case. Nobody's going to be like, hey, well, maybe someone will get on your case. And then that's a very valuable friend. But generally speaking, you can just not show up to any of the Vaishnava functions for a long time. And most people just not say anything about it. When you're in the ashram, if you're just like 10 minutes late to a program, like, somebody's going to give you a look or maybe say something. In a serious ashram, it's like that. There's a lot of obligation. There's a lot of power in the camaraderie. I was in some brahmachari ashrams where if you were just sleeping in for a mere moment, someone would come and kick in the door, literally. And it was all fun and games, but also serious. We have a godbrother, Krishnagraja Prabhu, who was a Vrindavan Gurukuli. And he came to stay in our brahmachari ashram in New Zealand. And the ashram was such that there was this tiny little house for like 15 guys. It had 3 bedrooms, and somehow we all lived in them, 1 toilet. And the 3 bedrooms were attached to 1 hallway. And so he would always be up earliest, and he'd turn on the lights in the hallway. And if anyone was up even a moment later than 3:30, he would literally kick open the door so all that light would flood in to whoever was sleeping in their sleeping bag. And I just remember he kicked in the door and woke up this one devotee, Mahanila. And he's just like real casually putting on his tilak, in the hallway, looking at Mahanila. How long will you sleep in the lap of the witch called Maya? And, it was all in love. It sounds harsh. I don't want to give the impression that it was like abusive. We all wanted to be up and ready for Mangalarati. But, when you're in the ashram, a good ashram, there's that pressure. I gotta perform. I gotta be at the right place at the right time. Take the sadhana seriously. Take the morning program seriously. In the Grihastha ashram, there is no such thing. And so when you become isolated, you can very easily start to slip in bhakti. So it's one of the biggest dangers, this isolation. Or, and then we can put on a show. In ISKCON, like in any other religious institution, it's not hard to just put on a show, doing all the external superficialities, so that when you are rarely seen by the devotees, everyone has the impression that, I guess they're doing all right in bhakti. They're wearing tilak, they have a dhoti on or a sari. I guess that's enough. No, it's not enough. One must associate with devotees, or we cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. Association is described by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction. Loving exchanges, right? Inquiring confidentially, giving gifts, taking prasadam, hearing and chanting about Krishna. It must be there. Satam prasangam, mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata. There must be association with devotees. And, a serious danger for grihastas is they can just squeak by. Is that the word? Yeah. Just squeak by and give the impression that I got it all together. Look, I come for Janmashtami. I don't do any service, but, I was there. I was in the temple muttering some japa in the back while everybody's chanting and dancing in ecstasy. And, we start to see these symptoms of a person who, because of being isolated, because of not associating, is not really, what is it? Katamrita nidao ratim. They're not attached to the ocean nectar of hearing and chanting the words of Krishna. You start to see those symptoms. They're not dancing in ecstasy and kirtan, sitting in the back, muttering to themselves and cultivating a frustrated mentality about how nobody else is doing it right. Only me, I'm the only devotee who knows how to practice Krishna consciousness. So that's why I don't need to associate with other devotees. I'm the only one who does it right. Look at them just pretending to chant and dance in ecstasy. We all know that there isn't really ecstasy in Krishna consciousness. Everybody knows. This is how that isolated person begins to think. Everybody knows there isn't really any ecstasy in chanting and dancing in Krishna consciousness. They're all just pretending. I'm the only one who really knows. And this way, you fall down into that deep well of material existence. So it's a serious danger. Just to recap, I'm going to say something positive. If I can think of something. No, I'm kidding. There's plenty of positive things about the Grihastha ashram, especially. But let's just recap those serious dangers. Number one, bodily life takes a lot of time. And the Grihastha ashram is all about justifying our bodily existence. And that just takes a lot of time. Let's just be honest. You might be a really good Grihastha too, but all this stuff just takes so much time. So that's a serious danger. And the second one, serious danger for Grihasthas is the tendency to become isolated. I think, I've got it all together in my own little castle. I don't want anybody coming in and disturbing me and telling me I've got to do better. I show up for a program, once in a moon cycle. That's enough. So Grihasthas should be very careful to avoid these pitfalls by making it a habit to plan for devotional service. And you got to just put in the effort. Just like today, my wife and I, along with our two children, will be driving down to Gitanagari to celebrate the Vyasa Puja of our spiritual masters, Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj. And that takes, for us, that takes like a week of planning. It takes a week of planning because we got so many obligations, in our home life. So I got to plan, like get my other work done earlier in the week. And they're going to have all the snacks for the kids in the car. You're going to have like the change of diaper. Are we bringing someone? We were planning to bring this couple, but now we can't. It takes a lot of planning. If we're bringing somebody, like the carpooling, and then when we get back, we're going to be behind schedule and other things. You got to plan to do that. So Grihasthas, you just got to make the plan to be engaged in devotional service, even if it takes a week of planning just to come to the temple. Some of you are listening who live in the ashram, you're probably thinking, wow, that's ridiculous. If I want to go to the temple, I just walk there in 30 seconds. But for some of us, it takes hours of planning. So it takes a lot of time, but you must make that plan. Those who are Grihasthas, you must plan to be engaged in devotional service. Don't just wait for it to fall in your lap, because it doesn't fall in the lap of the Grihasthas. And because it takes more effort, oftentimes those Grihasthas, they advance in Krishna consciousness very quickly. You have the potential. Grihastha ashram has the potential because it's more independent, and therefore your effort is worth more, actually. When we're in the ashram, you're going with the flow, and it's all just like happening. And as long as you keep your head above water, the course of the river is naturally taking you towards bhakti. That's the power of that sangha. You just kind of get caught up in it. But then sometimes we can take that for granted, and the sincere devotion might not be cultivated, even if you're in the ashram going through the motions. If you're just doing it, well, because I have to, and I don't want everybody to see that I'm in Maya. But when you're in a more independent, what do they call it? A personalized, customized ashram situation like Grihastha, then your effort is very sincere because no one's going to force you to do it. If you make an effort to do sankirtana, to have good sadhana, to associate with the devotees, and it's very sincere. I recall when I was a brahmachari, we would have a weekly Harinam down Queen Street in Auckland. And some of the boys would be out doing books all day. And then we just change in the car into our saffron and then just go to the Harinam, which was with the temple. And one great devotee that many of you know, Gaur Roy Prabhu, would show up and he would dance and chant in ecstasy, screaming the holy names like a lion. And, I'd be there, I just spent the whole day doing books and whatnot. So I'd be kind of tired, just Haribo. And I'd look at Gaur Roy and think, how is he so ecstatic in Krishna consciousness? I didn't know Grihasthas could be more advanced than me. I'm a brahmachari, I'm supposed to be like king of the world. And then I just asked him. At that time, he was a lot more busy. He was in school and also working. And he said, I just 7 days a week, I'm either in school or working. This is like my one service for the week. But he just put all of his heart and energy into it. And he would lead kirtan, just like summoning the gods with the power of his chanting. So, there's a lot of sincerity there. Recognize like this is so valuable that I get to do this service. And here I was taking for granted because I was just doing it every day. So for the grihastas, there's so much potential to be very sincere in devotional service. Nobody's going to hold your hand. But if we put in that effort, then it's very dear to Krishna. So that's so important and so amazing. It's so amazing to get to choose Krishna. In an independent status of life, you make the choice. When you're in the ashram, of course, you made the choice to be in the ashram. Nobody's here against our will. But when you're in the ashram, it's like everything's kind of decided for you. You got to do this, you got to do that. You go here. And you just try to like stay on board, stick with the program. But in the grihastha life, you have to make the choice yourself. And that choice energy is so powerful, so amazing. I could reference His Holiness Devamrita Swami's book, Bhakti Bhava, and because today's his Vyasa Puja day. And if you haven't read Bhakti Bhava, wow, today's a good day to start or to do it. When it first came out, I read the whole thing. Just sat down in one sitting, read the whole thing. It's just amazing. And he talks about how we got to exercise our choice muscle. And this is especially relevant for grihastas and aspiring grihastas. He says, don't pull your hair and teeth moaning, why? Why all the time this choice? I feel like I'm splitting into two persons. Always there's the opportunity for devotional service. Always there's the opportunity for sense gratification. Isn't this torture? He's saying in quotes. This is how sometimes we think, especially those of us in an independent status of life. Always you have the opportunity for devotional service and always the opportunity for sense gratification. You're kind of like struggling with the choice. So then Gurudev responds, writing, no, it's an opportunity for you to exercise your tiny independence for always choosing Krishna and his devotional service. If you look at the existential phenomenon in this way, you'll be spiritually enthusiastic. You'll thrive on choice. So the grihastas have a little bit more of that tiny independence. We all have tiny, tiny independence, but the grihastas just have like a little bit more of it. And when we exercise that choice and choose Krishna, then it actually causes spiritual thriving. So that's the amazing thing about that particular status of life, that ashram. You get to exercise your choice muscle, and it's very sincere and it's very pleasing to Krishna. I'm going to make the choice to always have connection with Sankirtana. Doesn't matter how much work I got to do, and the kids, and the house, and the bills, and the taxes, and the still, I'm making the choice. I will always have connection with devotional service, with Sankirtan, with the association of devotees. I'm going to make those plans, even if it takes me a week to plan just going to the temple on Saturday. Still going to do it. And then we thrive on that choice. And the reciprocation from Krishna is evident. Just like our dear friend Gaura Roy, how he'd be chanting and dancing in ecstasy because he thrived on making that choice, even though I'm so busy and making the choice to do this service. Of course, now he has a lot of service. He has a similar farm project in New Zealand, along with Julan Yatra and Rasa Yatra. They have some cows, and he's working very hard for Krishna. So grihastas, if we can exercise that choice muscle and please Krishna. And if we do not associate with devotees, then you cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. So it's very important for even grihastas to have devotees whom they trust, who can give them guidance, to reach out to those persons, to connect, to share their difficulties. Anytime grihasta men get together, the same conversations come up. How's the money? How are you making the money? How are you paying for everything? What's your finances like? And it's important because the mood is there to provide Krishna consciousness for ourselves and for our families. So it's important to have that sangha to encourage each other. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, you're doing well. How are you pulling it off? Come on, you can do it, Prabhu. Let's try again. Let's try harder. This is very important for devotees, especially grihastas, to have that association and to share our struggles and share our victories. Otherwise, like Narada Muni is saying here in this verse, for a conditioned soul who's always disturbed by the bodily necessities, and that's especially true for those of us in Grihastha life, we're justifying our bodily necessities. For such persons, Narada Muni says they have very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in conclusion, Grihastha ashram is wonderful. Actually, I'm certainly much better off in this status of life than I was in the tail end of my ashram life. It's wonderful to exercise that choice-making capacity, our tiny independence to choose Krishna. Don't struggle with the existential phenomenon, but being spiritually enthusiastic and thrive on choosing Krishna in his devotional service, despite the challenges. And then in this way, bhakti grows. Hare Krishna. I'll just finish there. There are a lot more experienced devotees here, especially experienced in this particular topic. So I wonder if they would like to comment or add anything. Of course, I shouldn't say always, but I sometimes take good counsel from dear Jagannath Pandit Prabhu when it comes to Grihastha things, relationship things. I wonder if he would like to add anything. Or, of course, we have very experienced Tarika Prabhu, Sarvatma and Divya Prabhus. When it comes to Grihastha life, they know many things. Or if we just want to speak more generally about this point of cultivating attachment to hearing and chanting the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts or comments. Otherwise, I will just ramble and ramble and ramble because, Lord, I was born a rambling man, trying to make a living and doing the best I can.
I just want to say that that was an embarrassing X-ray of our life as Grihasthas, and
sorry,
there is no hiding anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good for Grihasthas to recognize, okay, that the whole point of this Grihastha ashram is we're justifying some bodily necessities. Okay, fine. But we can actually use it as a springboard for rapid spiritual advancement. So sorry for being a little embarrassing. Can you imagine how embarrassing it is with children just trying to accomplish anything? Like I said, like herding cats, just like get everybody in the car and just to drive down to the temple. Oh my God, the energy that it takes. So sometimes it feels embarrassing. But again, as Gurudev was saying in this excerpt from Bhakti Bhava book, when you exercise that choice muscle, use your tiny independence to choose devotional service, you spiritually thrive. So Grihastha life, you can especially do that. Jagannath Pandit Prabhu, I saw you unmuted, so please say something. We love to hear your thoughts on pretty much everything in life.
Actually, this class muted me, so not much I can say. It's very spot on, as usual with your classes. And yeah, it's just very, powerful. And the things that you may have considered negative actually are very positive in your class, because it challenges us to use every moment in Krishna service, agitating our minds. So, and our actions. So thank you very much. It's very powerful. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jagannath Pandit Prabhu. Confirmation from you means a lot to me because I consider you the gold standard of devotional life, Grihastha life. So I really appreciate your feedback and your constant support. For the few times that I reach out in desperation, you always give me such wonderful support. So thank you. So again, just want to encourage, because I know there are a few people here who are just getting started in pursuing a cooperative spiritual life, cooperating with another person. Just want to give some encouragement that although these serious dangers are there, the tendency to waste time and the tendency towards isolation in the Grihastha ashram, still it is the ideal environment for most people. For most people, it is the ideal environment to exercise your choice muscle, to choose Krishna, and to choose a devotional service, to make big plans, to do service despite the challenges. So it's very exciting, and it's very wonderful, and it's all good, and we're all going back home, back to Godhead. I said it. Now you have to do it. Oh, Tarika Prabhu, would you like to contribute or correct me?
Well, I feel it's valuable to carefully consider all of the issues. Maybe I'm a contrarian, but I'll tell you honestly, I never liked the household ashram. Never liked it. Still don't.
You're Prabhupada man, true and true.
I find so much not to like about the household ashram, and I've been a householder for many decades, and the more time I spend with it, the more I feel that I don't know. For me, I feel it often acted like poison. I think I was better situated as a brahmachari, and I probably I would not have done well if I remained a brahmachari. Probably household life was a necessity for me, but to be honest, household life for me at least unavoidably detracted significantly from my Krishna consciousness. Attention must necessarily be diverted to so many things. You've touched on a bunch of those points, and it draws on your time. That's just one of many issues. It can sap your vitality. It takes a lot of energy. For some people, they will derive energy from household life, and for them, household life can be advantageous. But Srila Prabhupada explains that there's three modes of nature. There's different kinds of people. Not everyone's the same. For some people, it's very different. It would be a mistake to assume that the household ashram is an ideal situation for everyone. And as you said, there are it may be ideal for most people, but not all people. Srila Prabhupada discusses this in story of Gajendra. There is one particular purport in which he talks about fighting from a position of advantage, that Gajendra was out of his element fighting in the water, whereas the crocodile was getting more and more energy because he was in his natural environment. So Srila Prabhupada was suggesting that sometimes this or that ashram may be a more conducive or advantageous position from which to prosecute Krishna consciousness. But he makes the point of saying that what constitutes a position of strength will not be the same for everyone. So there are some for whom the household ashram is not advantageous. And so we have to be careful when we counsel other devotees. If we encourage everyone to become a householder, a responsible householder, and we talk about the benefits and advantages of household life, encouraging devotees for household life is is generally not required, because there is already significant impetus from the modes of nature to move in that direction. We have a natural inclination to try to do something like that. So, but it's worthwhile to caution devotees that you have to do a lot of reflection, examine yourself, and try to understand what really is best for you. Sometimes it's just impossible. Only direct experience will reveal your actual nature. But there are many devotees for whom the household ashram does not work well. Household life has inherently a great many problems to it. We understand that, or maybe we don't. Actually, many devotees enter the household ashram without a clear understanding of the many implications and how very difficult it actually will be. We tend to see, all of the advantages, and by Maya's arrangement, it will appear to be very attractive, but when we actually get into the situation and begin the hard work of trying to manage our life in Krishna consciousness day to day, it gradually is revealed how extremely difficult it is. Now, for some, that situation, in spite of the difficulty, is advantageous. They will derive strength and encouragement. Others, not so much. Others will just find it to be nothing but trouble, just very, very troublesome, and an imposition on their Krishna consciousness. Some people can do very well without any of that. So we don't want to encourage people to make a major change in their life that may actually be disadvantageous for them. So our presentation has to be well-rounded. We have to explain all of the angles so that people can make an informed decision. Vitality is a finite resource, and it gradually dwindles with time. And in the household ashram, there can be a tremendous drain on one's vitality. It can really just kill people. Some people, as I say, will get tremendous energy and encouragement from that, but depends upon your nature, and not everyone's the same. Lots of different people. We look more or less the same on the outside, but the actual mentality, the actual consciousness can be quite different. There's many, many different varieties of the modes of nature, and not everybody works the same. So those are some things that come to my mind. One could go on at great length about the in family life and the challenges of trying to find time. Time, of course, another extremely valuable and finite resource that is easily squandered, easily lost, and no amount of money can buy back even one moment of precious time. Of course, ideally we want to expend all of our life's time in devotional service, and but nothing does a job of diverting our time and attention than trying to meet the responsibilities of household life. We try to dovetail all of it with Krishna consciousness, so that it's not a waste of time. Exactly, I'm having to spend a lot of time to do this or that, which may not be itself directly devotional service, but it's in pursuance of devotional service. I have to hold down this job in order to provide for myself and my family so that we can execute devotional service. But in the meantime, I'm having to make a lot of compromises in my life. A tremendous amount of time and energy is expended for that purpose. I'm having to associate with non-devotees unavoidably, and there's many challenges and many compromises, and it can be extremely difficult. And sometimes householders do not fare well; they go backwards instead of forward. History records countless examples of householders that just simply they pretty much wasted their life. There are you can hear countless accounts in Srimad Bhagavatam, songs of acharyas describing or lamenting the plight of having wasted so much time in household life. Easy to waste time. Trying to manage time efficiently, trying to utilize it well and to your advantage in Krishna consciousness is an immense challenge. And you've talked a little bit about this, but my God, I think it probably can't be stressed enough how great that challenge is. It's extraordinarily challenging. I'm typically the wrong person to talk to about or to have speak about any aspect of household life, because I really have a pretty negative view of household life, and I think it's but from my perspective, I think I'm just being realistic. There is sense gratification unavoidably in household life. We talk about a license for sense gratification, and that has to be understood properly. Of course, there's a lot that could be said about that. It's not exactly a license. Sense gratification is a problem any which way you look at it. But whether you're in the household ashram or not, it's not the thing to do. But in household life, there is an arrangement by which you render devotional service that entails some sense gratification unavoidably. Try to minimize sense gratification, because sense gratification is not our path. We're trying to render devotional service, and these two are diametrically opposed to one another. But so a license, you can beget children, which entails some sense gratification. If it didn't entail sense gratification, then nobody would do it, because it's horrible. There's so much pain to be endured, so much responsibility that you have to accept, so much anxiety and hard work. A householder will never be peaceful for the rest of his life, because he's got to worry about his children and his home and his wife and so many things. Constant anxiety, because you have unavoidably responsibilities that you must meet. And so how can you be peaceful? You always have to worry about these things. Now, for devotees, of course, we can become peaceful in Krishna consciousness. It's possible to acquire a fixed mind and remain always peaceful in Krishna consciousness, but it can be very, very challenging in the household ashram. More challenging, significantly more challenging than in other ashrams. The advantage is that it can help you to control your mind and senses to some extent, because in the absence of such an arrangement, you might just simply fall down into some illicit activity that would be more damaging to you in the long haul. So there are advantages, but the disadvantages are tremendous, and they really have to be considered with care before you leap into what can be andakupam, right? The dark well. It's dangerous. It can be very, very dangerous. It takes a lot of maturity, a lot of intelligence, a lot of hard work to execute the duties of household life in a productive way. And speaking of duties, there are many duties. There are responsibilities that a householder has. There's Grihastha Dharma. There are certain activities that a householder is responsible for performing. Failure to do all those things properly means that that you become very deeply entangled. You have to work hard to actually counteract the unavoidable engagement in sense gratification. So you can beget a child, but the atonement for your sense gratification is that you must produce a Krishna conscious child. So that means you have to invest a tremendous amount of time and energy. It's extremely hard work trying to raise a child in Krishna consciousness, trying to protect them from the pitfalls. And in the present context, my God, what a challenge. How do you educate your child? Do you educate them at home? Do you send them off to Gurukula? God help you if you try to raise a child in Krishna consciousness through a public school system. Srila Prabhupada said that the PS and New York school systems, every school has a designation. It's PS and then a number. The different schools each have it numbered, so it's PS this, PS that. Srila Prabhupada said the PS stands for public slaughterhouse. It's a very, very dangerous place to go if your interest is Krishna consciousness. Public school systems will indoctrinate you into material life very, very effectively to the exclusion of Krishna consciousness. It is possible to cultivate Krishna consciousness in such an environment, but it's very, very challenging. There is tremendous pressure. You spoke about the importance of association with devotees, and the association with other devotees works well for us because the human species is a herd animal. We tend to rely on others to some extent for our sense of security. Just like any herd animal, we will tend to follow the pack. If you are in the company of other individuals, we're kind of like chameleons. We will take on the color of our environment by you become whatever you associate with. You take on those qualities, and so to associate with devotees then is advantageous. Association with non-devotees will have the opposite effect, but in the company of devotees, we derive great benefit. We derive encouragement and enthusiasm. There is a certain amount of pressure, social pressure, more like a kind of social encouragement that, but it's very helpful. So association with devotees is important in a whole bunch of ways, very, very critical. In the absence of the opportunity to directly associate with other devotees, we can even if we are alone, how we have the opportunity by Srila Prabhupada's grace and brilliantly planned a strategy for our best advantage. He's made his books widely available. We can associate with the topmost devotee, the perfect devotee, a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada has made his association available to us in his books and recordings. We can associate with him anytime, anywhere. Modern technology has made it possible for us to have Srila Prabhupada's association anywhere, anytime. We should take full advantage of that. If you don't do that, that is pretty damn foolish. that should absolutely be taken advantage of. Have the opportunity to get lots and lots of association anywhere, any time. There is no excuse. In a tiny device you can fit in your pocket, you can have all of Srila Prabhupada's words. You can have his association anytime, anywhere, and not just Srila Prabhupada, of course. Many other devotees, whomever you're. You can have his association of so many other advanced souls, and we should have a solid plan in our life to take advantage of that. Otherwise, we're missing out. We're taking unnecessary risks and missing out on something really, really valuable. So, whatever you do. Absolutely. Oh, Jai Shri Radha Damodar. Enough of Tarika Das. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Radha Damodar. Thank you, Yashadev Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Tarika Prabhu. I hope it's not inappropriate for me to compliment you. If it is, please correct me. But I think that what you're saying expresses your success in Grihastha life if at the end of that period, you don't want to do it anymore. That's the success. Where, as one of my godbrothers told me, senior Grihastha, he said that the whole point of the Grihastha ashram is to realize I don't need to be doing this. So you come to the end and you're ready to just be fully surrendered to Krishna. So thank you for being an emblem of success. I hope that's not inappropriate. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.